everybody, and welcome to a session with Dr. Papori Barooah, where I would like to talk about a very widely talked phenomena or topic about communication skills. So I would like to introduce the topic with a very simple example. When we see a baby, we see the baby cry for food, smile, laugh, alright, or make words, try to tell words there. Now all of these gives us one basic idea that it is the urge to communicate something or pass on some information. It proves a very basic point. The necessity, the importance of communication starts from a very, very early stage. Now when we talk about meeting somebody, we meet a girl like this who has a very grumpy face, and we meet somebody with a radiant smile there on the face. So who is it that will necessarily like somebody with the radiant smile? Therefore, what I would like to tell is that communication is not only verbal. It is not just the words that we tell. Communication has many other aspects, many other layers to it. So my session today will be an attempt to try and analyze how communication used effectively can actually help you to throw an impression which is really great. So let's start. So actually, if I start talking about what is communication. Communication, like say for instance, one person meets the other person. Now, what the person tells the other person is he's trying to tell something, and communication happens if the other person actually understands what I'm trying to tell. So I intend to pass on some information, my ideas to the other person who's listening to you. If the other person actually gets what I intend to give him or her, that is the particular instance when communication is actually happening. Therefore, it is very important that we realize and remember that communication, or when you talk with somebody, if I'm talking about the verbal communication, it is mostly the passing on of information. But actually, is it only passing on of information? But if that is the case, the other person who's listening may get really, really bored listening to us. And hence, there are many other factors that actually are very important and very, very necessary for successful communication to happen. Therefore, when we talk about communication, it is also interaction and it is also involvement of both the speaker as well as the listener. Hence, communication, as we all know, that it can either be verbal, it can be non-verbal, it can be written. Today in this particular session, I'll just try to concentrate on the verbal and the non-verbal aspect of communication. So when we tell verbal, there are many aspects like intrapersonal communication, interpersonal communication, communication in a group, communication in public, communication in gatherings. So therefore, those are all aspects of or types of the verbal communication. But when we talk about non-verbal, it is an entirely different world, and you'll be surprised to know that your body, the way you carry your body, the way you gesticulate, the way I'm gesticulating now, or the way I smile, the way you dress, everything has an effect, or everything can really throw an influence on the person who's listening to you, and can really hamper or actually forward the communication. And when we talk about the other aspects, like we talk about the non-verbal communication, there are many other aspects like how the body language, your eye contact. So it can also be positive, it can be negative, but we'll be really surprised to know that when we are talking about communication, verbal communication just makes up 35% of the entire communication process, but non-verbal makes up 65%. So now, when we meet somebody for the first time, what do? We try to introduce ourselves. We try to put on a good face there, and we always feel that we should throw an impression on the person there before us. So imagine if you meet somebody for the first time and you tell, how do you do? What do you think will be the response? Normally there are many people who say, all right, I'm fine, thank you. But you will be surprised to know, or might be some of you know also, that for the perfect reply for how do you do is how do you do in reply. That is when you meet somebody for the first time. So the person replies back with how do you do, and the person opens the mouth, and automatically we know so much about the person. The verbal communication has started. He has opened his mouth, and we know so much about him. His accent, the way he tells the words he uses, the way he moves his lips, the way he uses gesticulations. I'm sorry I'm using the word he. I mean, it's a cover term for everybody. So it is something like, what I'm trying to say is that the first instance of verbal communication happening throws an impression, and therefore the first word you utter is always very important when you meet somebody for the first time. And hence we can say, or say for one more instance, say somebody gives you a gift there and you're very, very happy about it, and you utter these words, thank you very much. Now if I want to tell you, all right, can you tell me which are the words you're going to tell strongly? Thank you very much. Now one thing we need to remember is that in English follows a staccato rhythm in speech, like huff-a-lig, huff-a-lig, huff-a-lig onward, unto the valley of death rode the 600. So it's like, there should be a rhythm in your speech, and therefore all the words that you use in a sentence in English are not told in a monotone. All of them have a particular way of getting importance for themselves. For instance, these words, thank you very much. The best way, the perfect way of telling thank you very much. So you're focusing on you and much. In English, normally we do not tell very much. The word very is very, very, very. You almost eat up the word when you tell that word. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the moment the person opens the mouth, we come to know about him or her. The other things that will also play an impression or play an effect is the body language, the attitude of the person, the clothes he or she wears, and as I said, the speech. Now, let us now come to the other aspect called non-verbal communication. Now, when we tell about non-verbal communication, it is basically about your body language. Say how you're sitting, what types of dress you're wearing, the way you give your first handshake. Of course, now in this particular time, handshake is a big no-no. But originally, otherwise, some time of the year might be, we will have the opportunity to actually, again greet oneself with each other with the handshake. Now, how do you give the perfect handshake is also very important. Or say, whether you have a smiling face, or if you're really grinning, or whether you're throwing and, you have an eye contact with the person you're talking to. All of these will actually have an impression, will actually play a major part in the type of communication you are trying to establish. So the big question is that how can we have an impressive personality? How can we create a personality that people will say, wow, that's good. So what we need to do is that throw in a proper balance between the verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now, before we go on to do that, we also have something in the back of our head, that we are actually dealing with a group of people, with a group of students, if you are teachers, those people who are already into the virtual world of media, the virtual world of digital technology. So all the people are, although the person is here seated before you, the person might be having so many things running in his head, which has an effect on the type of communication that happens. So we are actually living in a very, very digitized world, and everything is very, very sensitive there because information is everywhere. Now, it is very important to have proper communication skills at this particular juncture of history, because we really are in tough times handling professional issues, mental issues. You have some problems with your friends and family. So as a whole, if I talk about it, communication skills, if you acquire good communication skills, a balance of verbal and non-verbal skills, and you're going to have a personality which can very well adapt to everything that's changing around us as a human being. And nowadays this word called communication skills has been really studied and researched so much. We also use so many new names for it, like soft skill, or we talk about interpersonal skills also. Therefore, what actually is communication skill? If I tell you, it is nothing but it's a personal attribute. That means it is something that is related only to you. It is something that is something that's very peculiar about you as an individual. It differs from individual to individual, and it enables somebody to interact effectively and harmoniously with the world around him. Therefore, communicative skill it's very, very important for success in all aspects of life, and more so in the job aspect. Now, when we talk about two people meeting and talking, and we really, the intention is that there is information passed and the second person understands what I want to tell. Therefore, that is very important, and for that we have something like very simple thing, like we will have I am speaking in a perfect volume. Means I'm not shouting at the top of my voice. I'm not talking in such a low voice that the other person he doesn't even listen to me whatever I'm telling. So the maintaining of the perfect tone and volume is very important. Further, one more thing, as I've been repeating in this particular session, eye contact is very important. When you talk with somebody, you should look directly to the eye and talk, and give all the importance to the person. The person should feel that you are talking to only him or her, and nobody else is important at that particular moment there. And of course, your words are also very clear and they're perfectly pronounced. I give a lot of importance on pronunciation, because pronunciation is something that can really, really make you stand apart from the others and make you distinctly a personality which calls for a lot of appreciation. Another thing is that when you're talking with somebody, you have to have a mindset which will also allow the other person to talk. You should give turns to talk. And further, if you are a listener and not the speaker, you should be somebody who is listening. Again, eye contact is there, and you're listening, and you're also asking questions in between, and might be summarizing whatever you've learned from him or her. So in a way, both the people are very active during the entire process. Now, when we talk about verbal communication, we however need to be very, very careful that we should always try to get to the point and not beat around the bush, because as I said, we are in a digitized world where nobody has time enough, and we all have something called concentration span. Now, 2 years back, Google had researched and had found out that human beings had the 10 seconds of concentration span. And now in 2020, it was researched to be only 8 seconds. Even a goldfish has more concentration span. It is 9 seconds. So for you, when you meet somebody for the first time, or you start a conversation, whether in public or in personal, only 8 seconds are there for you to catch the attention of the person, and then try and convey in such a manner the person will go on listening even after 8 seconds. And hence we should keep it very short and simple. But there's again a problem. If we keep it very short and simple, we might miss out on many information. We might miss out on something that we really had to tell. Or what might happen if you are in a hurry, people might think that you are really somebody who's not very, somebody who's not very trying to give much importance, or not someone who is not very serious. So what is the most important thing if coming to this point, if I ask you, or if we try to analyze what actually is the most important thing when we are talking about conversation or communication, it is retaining the attention of the person. Now, how do you go about doing it? When we are talking, we need to realize the person who's listening to us, we need to realize what mindset the person has when he or she is listening to us, whether there should be sense of empathy. That means we are warm towards the person, we are friendly towards the person, and we also respect the other person's intentions and whatever emotions he or she has at that particular point of time. Now, continuing with verbal communication, it's very important for us, however, to brush up our communication skills off and on. Might be listen to oneself, or record your voice and listen how it feels when you listen to yourself. Therefore, it's important that we brush up our communication skills and we focus on the flaws in our speech. Nobody is perfect. Everybody, and more so in India, every region has distinct pull of the mother tongue. Especially talking about my mother tongue, because I know my mother tongue the best, Assamese. My students sometimes have problems with pronouncing or differentiating the s and the sh. Like SHE is she and SEE is C. So in Assam we have this sh and s, very distinctly problematic. Now, when we talk about really trying to give proper communication skills to the students, we focus on that area and we try and do drills on that, so that their communication, that aspect of their communication is rectified and the flaw is to an extent nullified. Or further, that's what I was talking about. It is the pull of the mother tongue, and we really need to minimize it. And as teachers, if some of you are teachers here, it is important that we act as role models for our students. So what actually can the teacher do? Now, when we as teachers in the class, or anybody, say somebody is going for an interview also, or anybody for that matter, when you utter a word, it's important that you give due respect to each word, that you do not run to get to the end of the sentence. You should have a proper pace of your voice, not very fast, not very slow, and it should be like something like this. Say, I have a sentence before you here. I want you to take the dog for a walk. Now, when I'm talking about communicating an idea, whatever information I actually want the other person to get to, I will try and focus on that particular word in the sentence. So for instance, if I tell I want you to take the dog for a walk, it means that it is I who wants it, nobody else. I might tell I want you to take the dog for a walk. It means that I want you to take the dog and nobody else. You should take the dog for a walk. If I tell I want you to take the dog for a walk, means I want you to take the dog, not the cat, for a walk. But if I tell I want you to take the dog for a walk, means I do not want you to take the dog for a run. A very simple sentence, but gives a lot of ideas on how we can actually give that particular part of the information that we really want to convey, and we really want the other person to get that particular aspect. So we need to focus on the words and syllables we want to really emphasize. Now so basically what I'm trying to arrive at, and it's a very big portion of verbal communication, is phonetics. Phonetics is the science of the spoken language. Of course, everybody will not be familiar with phonetics. Of students of literature, that's another thing. But others might not be familiar. So there are many rules actually that guide English pronunciation, that guides the way you talk. Basically, being of English background, literature background, language background, I tend to focus, or I'm trying to actually try and bring it before you what the words, the way the words can be uttered. See the word population, the pronunciation is population. Now if I look at these words, how many times, this particular word, how many times am I taking a breath when I'm telling the word population? Now 4 times I'm taking a breath when I am pronouncing that word. It means there are 4 syllables in that particular word. Means every time I take a breath, I form a syllable. And in English language, we always count the syllables from the right hand side. So TION is 1, LA is 2, PU is 3, and PO is 4. In a word that ends in TION, all words in English that ends in TION, the second syllable from the right will be told more strongly. It's always population. Whether you say that word alone or you say it in a sentence like there's a huge population, or you say just the word population, it's fixed in English. So that makes your work a lot easier there. Because if you know where to pronounce that particular accent, or where to pronounce that particular word properly with the proper accent on that particular syllable, you are telling, actually you are speaking perfect English there. And it is, I tell you, it's really going to throw an impression there. Similarly, so that's what I said, that syllable and this accent is always fixed. So one more thing there, as I said, the end will determine. There's some rules of English phonetics which tells you that these are the word endings and this is how you pronounce them. I'm just going to give you a few words there, like the word CANTEEN. We are taking 2 breaths with canteen. Now always EEN ending words on the right hand side, you count in the first syllable from the right will be told more strongly. I'm going to the canteen. I'm going to the canteen. Right? Or only the word canteen. Teen. The person will listen to teen more strongly because that is the actual accented syllable, or syllable that is told more strongly. Alright. Say for instance this word, it's Assamese. ESC ending words will always take the accent on the right, last or in the first syllable from the right hand side. So therefore it's Assamese. Any word like Chinese, Japanese. Or say this word, OON ending words will always be accented on the first syllable from the right. Balloon. We tell balloon, but that's not the right way of telling it. Perfect pronunciation. If at all you can really try and acquire this, understand this, there are few rules there. Anybody interested can always look up for these rules. They're all available on the YouTube also. That will really help you better your speech. Now, another aspect, of course, of communication apart from the speaker is the listener. Now, how do you actually become a good listener? When you're listening to somebody, you should be very careful that your eyes are focused on that person. You're listening with the eyes, you're listening with your ears, and moreover, you're listening from the heart. If you're doing that, only then can you have proper communication happening. And of course, as I said, there are other things also that really affect or really hamper your communication. Is one thing. I'm coming to the non-verbal part of communication, that is the body language. And first thing I'm coming to is a facial expression. Your face is like an open book, whatever you're feeling inside will be all reflected on your face. Therefore, it's very, very important to try and look into what type of facial expression you're carrying. Or there's one more very important part that is known as intonation. Though it is related to the verbal, still there are layers to it. Like, say for instance, somebody knocks on the door and I tell yes. The person on the other side of the door will feel, okay, she's very angry, I better go some other time. Or sometimes if I tell yes, the person will think, okay, she's very relaxed, we can always go in, there's no problem. Or if I tell yes, it shows that I'm very irritated, and that is the intonation, the melody of your speech. Somebody picks up the phone, the moment the person answers the phone, where we somehow can figure out where the person is, what the person's doing, without even looking at the person. And that is the intonation. You need to be very careful about the intonation that you use in your speech. Like when you meet a small child and if you ask, what's your name? Child will have a heart attack, I guess. But if you tell, what's your name? As teachers, we always need to really try and use this rising tone. How are you? I know we can do it. So that is the idea of intonation. Though it's related to speech, it's an aspect of non-verbal communication, because the tone itself gives a lot of meaning to your speech. Further, as I said earlier, it's eye contact, which is very important. And even the way you move. When you enter a classroom, the way you move in, that shows what mood are you in. And people automatically accept or reject you. Further, the way you sit down, that also shows a lot about your individuality, your personality. People will or might be the appearance, the way you dress up. There's a register for everything. If you go to a marriage, the way you dress, the way you go to a classroom, the way you dress, it all has a sense of register. They're all specified, right? I still remember last time we were in Bangkok, and we were waiting for two people to really board a ship there. But the problem was that it was an Indian couple there, and this lady was wearing sari, and she could not really go inside. You have to take some steps inside the water to board a ship, right? So a small boat sort of thing, and she had a lot of problems. Similarly, the gentleman with her was wearing full formal dress. So that when you're trying to go on a picnic, you're trying to go on a holiday, you normally do not wear that. Therefore, it conveyed a lot. Without them speaking, we knew a lot about them. It communicated a lot about the individuals that were there in the scene. Therefore, your appearance is important, and the gestures that you use, the movements of your hands is also important. So how we carry our body is just a representation of what mental state we are in, and therefore we need to communicate, or we actually communicate all of it to the other person who's looking at us. So our bodies can actually communicate as much as our words can. And in fact, when we talk about body language, we also have very, very two important distinct divisions of something called a positive body language and a negative body language. You meet somebody and automatically you like the person, you're comfortable with the person, that's the positive body language. But when you meet some other people and we see the people like they might be either breaking or cracking their knuckles there, or say they are, biting their nails, they are touching the hair there, or might be using fillers, like you are like searching for words. These are known as fillers. You should completely avoid these because they are parts of negative body language and throws a very bad impression about you on the person. Or something like, you're also touching the nose. This is known as a nose touch, or the eye rub. You're rubbing your eye, or you're gesticulating, or you are covering your mouth when you're talking. Very, very a completely negative aspect there of your body language. Or one more thing, when you're talking and you're using this and you're talking, now it signifies the stipple. The stipple is something that we refer to in connection with the church. The church has always been, it shows some authority over the people, and people look up in awe to them, in respect and awe, and anybody who uses a stipple is actually trying to dominate. So you should avoid using that. And so now, if towards the end of this discussion, or in fact towards the end of the session, I would like to really try to find out why is there this big fuss about communication skills there. Because it gives better chance for better performance in the exams. Anybody who's into any job can work more effectively and maintain better relations with friends and family. But as I always tell, we are in a digitized world, and the world is changing, and it requires a lot of teamwork, or say something like cross-cultural interaction. And if somebody has a good communication skill, can always do better here. And now actually we also need to realize that we are teaching children who are actually, for children, we can talk to them about them as a Generation Z. That means someone born between 1996 to 2010. These children are now growing up and coming to the schools and colleges. They are the people who are into the whole digitized system. They're born with a cell phone in their hands. And someone like earlier we used to say, all right, let's go and play outside, or let's go and play video games. Now they tell, follow me on Instagram. And hence the moral of the story is that those with excellent communication skills will do the best in life. And hence, however, we also know that people here nowadays, we're talking about the digitized world, they are more, they are very comfortable with the written text, emails and things like that. And therefore, it is very important to realize that it is no longer the time when we have to follow something like the jug mug theory, that the teacher is full of knowledge and the student is just a mug into which we will throw our all our knowledge. We need to be a facilitator, and we need to be acting as a role model, and we need to make them realize that actually it's a very, very fast changing world, and one thing that will come very handy for them is having a good communication skill and trying to better and erase all the flaws in their speech, and trying to be somebody who can very effectively deliver. I hope this was an interesting session for you all, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you.